Wise men say only fools rush in, but I wondered what was Baz thinking here. Austin Butler did a pretty good job, but overall, this movie felt like a flop. Elvis was written and directed by Baz Luhrmann, who did the Leonardo DiCaprio and Claire Danes version of Romeo and Juliet, Moulin Rouge, The Great Gatsby remake, as well as Australia. And he's a bright, visual, colorful director that likes to just throw a whole bunch of colors and visuals and everything, and all this slapdash stuff, and all this music, and all this pomp and circumstance. Da 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 da, just like Randy Savage. So yeah, Baz Luhrmann, he decided to bring Elvis's story to life, if you want to call it that. Austin Butler does a great job as Elvis. He was in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and this kind of reminded me of Walk the Line, in the sense that, well, besides the two main performances, in that case, Reese Witherspoon and Joaquin Phoenix, and in this case, Austin Butler and Tom Hanks, the rest of the movie just kind of felt like it was taking liberties with the goddamn story. This thing jumped all over the goddamn timeline. Yes, it's impossible to tell the entire story of Elvis Presley from birth to superstardom to comeback and then to the final days of his Vegas shows and everything. But this movie didn't even take much of a linear path. This just said, we're just going to have a whole bunch of fun, and we're going to have Austin Butler do a bunch of Elvis impressions and do them well and sing pretty well. And we're going to have Tom Hanks talk like he has a helium balloon placed in his goddamn throat. And then everything else, we're going to do a bunch of historically inaccurate shit. Look, I didn't expect a ton of stuff to be accurate in this movie, but I expected it to be entertaining. Walk the Line was about 2 hours and 16 minutes, roughly. This was about 2 hours and 39 minutes. Meaning that while Walk the Line felt like it was stretched out and took many liberties with the goddamn story, still wasn't horrible. Driven by the two performances, not driven by anger, because we're not in the Fayetteville Benoit household. Nevertheless, non-wrestling fans have no idea what I'm talking about. This was not good. It was not good. I'm not even going to lie. I pretty much hated this movie. And I'm not the biggest Elvis fan, but I'm not an Elvis detractor. Of course, if you dig a little deeper on Elvis, yes, he was very, very influential. He did borrow the music from, church revivals and everything, and got the influence and made it his own, for good, bad, or indifferent. But boy, some things in this movie, it's just like, wow, they really just glossed over this, or they did this, or whatever, and they're trying to present Elvis as a sympathetic figure, and I'm not saying that the guy wasn't taken advantage of by Colonel Parker, not Colonel Rob Parker, not to be confused with, the mid-90s WCW manager, if you know, you know. But even for Tom Hanks, this was one of his more phoned-in performances. And there was Olivia DeJonge. She played Priscilla. More on that here in a little bit. There was Gladys, played by Helen Thompson. There were other characters, B.B. King and Little Richard and all this stuff and everything. And they tried to present it as a fun journey of the whirlwind, craziness that is the music industry. And yes, this was happening in the 50s and into the 60s when civil rights and a whole bunch of other shit was going on. The fact that black people were called coloreds, and the other N word that I'm not going to mention here just because other skin tone was fucking atrocious. Elvis came basically from nothing. His dad wrote a bad check, and he rose to prominence and used his talent, the music that he, felt the influence of from an early age, and eventually just, was able to reach superstardom. Thanks in part to the Colonel, and also the Colonel kind of undid his career. There are other biopics and other documentaries and everything of Elvis that did a lot better job than this of telling like the whole story. But maybe it could be entertaining. Here's the problem. It really wasn't. I didn't understand the inclusion of current artists instead of using Elvis's massive fucking catalog. Whether he took them from other artists or did his own, whatever. Just thousands of songs. And you couldn't use all Elvis songs in this. I understand maybe wanting to include on the soundtrack, current artists trying to do renditions of his, but somebody told me, oh, look out for this one song named, by a artist called Doja Cat. What the fuck is a Doja Cat? That sounds like a goddamn Pokemon. And then there are other artists that are singing, and it sounds like I hated this movie. I kind of did. I kind of did fucking hate it, and I didn't want to because Austin Butler really did a good job. But for all the praise this movie got, I'm watching it and I'm thinking, I'm waiting for it to click. I'm waiting for it to click. It will very rarely have any spark to it. It feels like a series of still shots or brief clips from Elvis's life, human centipede together and then stretched out. Stretched the fuck out. This movie dragged. This movie really, really fucking dragged. It wasn't the best telling of Elvis's story. Sure, it touched on a few things, the drug usage later in his life, his bond with his mother being broken when his mother died when he was like 23 or whatever. Man, Mark Hoppus was right. They don't really like you when you're 23. You are not a Blink-182 fan. You have no idea what I'm referring to. But I don't know. Something about this, the musical performances felt hollow. While he did a good job impersonating Elvis, a lot of this stuff just felt like they were just doing these weird camera switches, and Baz Luhrmann was trying every stylish thing he could to hide the fact that he was either checked out of this project or maybe the three other writers. Sam Bromwell, who did Shorts, a guy named Craig Pierce, who did Romeo and Juliet, Moulin Rouge, Charlie St. Cloud, and The Great Gatsby, and also Jeremy Domer. He did that. So, okay, you have a bunch of other writers, and you're trying to come up with a whole bunch of stuff to make this movie entertaining, and you barely could justify 90 minutes of this. This was not good. This was pretty goddamn atrocious. The performances felt very one note. And even Olivia de Jong as Priscilla was just not good. They would touch on something in Elvis's life that could be meaty, and then they just move on. They talked about his movie career. They talked about his time in the military. They talked about his run-ins with the law because the law didn't want him to be doing any of them gyrations and talking about any of them N-words being, seen as equals. You can't talk about the coloreds being. It sticks in my craw to even fucking say that. But it was very much, of the time when people were racist. It's a good thing people aren't anymore. Oh. Unfortunately, a lot of this still applies even to this day. Was Elvis influential? Yes, he fucking was. Is his music still thought of fondly to this day? Yes. Did he abuse women? Yeah. Yeah, he fucking did. Just read up on it. There are better Elvis biopics, entertainment, with entertainment aspects that are done better than this. Way, way better than this. Baz Luhrmann basically spent $85 million to have a Fap Fest with Elvis stills and songs and everything, and it didn't end up working at all. I'm sure that people will disagree. You can let me know in the comments. I would love to hear from you guys. But I am going to get into spoilers here. So, fair warning. This is on HBO Max, by the way. I was not going to pay to watch this in theaters because watching a 2-hour and 40-minute Elvis movie, you might have to take a couple bathroom breaks being in the theater. And you don't want to miss a thing. You don't want to miss anything, even though you could fall asleep and not miss shit for half of this because it kind of repeats itself a lot. It gets to the point where it's like, okay, another musical performance. Yes, he was a musical artist and it was great, but what more does this movie have? It just has this, and it has Austin Butler really, really trying hard. Really trying hard to honor Elvis's legacy. And I think he did the best he could with this impersonation. Tom Hanks is totally wasted here. He might have been wasted in general, and he's usually a pretty consistently great actor. This is a misfire for him. And then again, if you have as many movies as he's done, you're going to have misfires. So, yes, once again, HBO Max, and there you go. You can watch it there. You can pause it. You can come back in an hour. You could, let it go for 5 minutes, not miss shit. Anyway, let's get into spoilers. 3, 2, 1, and spoilers now. Okay, so it jumps around all over the place. First, we see Elvis passing out before a show, and Tom Hanks' character says, all that matters is getting this boy on stage. And then we hear the recounting from the later part of Tom Hanks' Colonel Parker's life, where he's kind of going through the last memories of his life before he dies. Was he taken advantage of by me? No, he wasn't. He died because he loved the fans. He died because Colonel Parker basically took a bunch of money from him. Now, Elvis was by no means an innocent person. He groomed fucking Priscilla. And I mean emphasis on groomed and fucking. Just read up on it. Look at the age difference. I know that it happened in the music industry. It still does. I know it happens all over goddamn entertainment. That's fucking bullshit. Fucking goddamn bullshit. You don't do that. I don't care what gender. I don't care what planet you come from. You don't fucking do that. And there were other allegations how he treated women, and also the fact he spent money like a drunken sailor because he got all caught up. He wanted to buy his parents great things and help his mama and even his dad that wrote a bad check and put him in a bad situation. And then they just totally forget about the family for a while. I mean, the dad's around as his business manager. The mother dies. They show the sister a little bit. They don't show that many personal things that could actually matter. Yes, it's supposed to be about Elvis, but if you're not going to even try to humanize him, you're just going to make him a complete caricature for at least most of the movie, and you try to humanize him, it doesn't work. It doesn't work, and unfortunately, Austin Butler, as good as he is, he's struggling to stay above water with this. I don't know. They first discover when he was doing that tent revival show and everything, and then he entertains people. All the parents are all upset because of the devilish, the heathen gyrations that he does. And yes, they jump around to the fact that he Memphis' Beale Street and the other stuff that he did growing up and becoming a prominent star and working an outdoor show at Rosewood Park and getting arrested because he wouldn't conform and he wanted to just do his own thing. And then they talk about how Martin Luther King was shot and Senator Kennedy was shot. They even talk about his friendship with B.B. King, but if you read up on it while they knew each other, and I'm sure respected each other, I don't believe they were ever actually friends, according to reports and according to other documentaries. The Elvis Presley Enterprises is formed. The Colonel had a lot of gambling debts, and used Elvis basically as his ticket to get out of said gambling debts, except he didn't, because he kept gambling in Vegas and gambling constantly and gambling and all that. And if you do have a gambling addiction, help is out there, by the way, but they just they make everybody a goddamn sleazeball, because Elvis, yes, may not have been perfect, but he certainly wasn't a good individual. Music was influential, yes, but that's about it. In the end, you gotta listen to yourself, as B.B. King said to him. I'm sure totally historically accurate. Meets Priscilla in Germany as a teenager. She's the daughter of an Air Force general. This is while he's serving over in the military. Either go to jail or serve in the military. He does. He comes back. They gloss over his Hollywood career really, really quickly. Like, they could have expanded on that a little bit more, even if the movies were kind of samey. They were pretty big hits, and Elvis found a second life after coming back from being in the military. And there's a Christmas special coming up, the comeback special. They seem to almost imply, or one of the comeback specials, they seem to almost imply that he fell off the earth after the comeback special, though he was in some movies after that, and then he also did the Vegas shows, and the Vegas shows were popular until he kind of went, tits up, because, he was pilling himself out of his gourd. They even implied that a little bit earlier when he was first going on tour. The parents didn't trust the Colonel. They were right to not trust the goddamn Colonel. The Colonel kept taking money from him, so eventually, when he tried to split from the Colonel, oh no, we owe him so much money. Partly because Elvis kept spending money like crazy, and also because the Colonel was a goddamn piece of shit. They captured that aspect perfectly. He cheated on Priscilla constantly. They had a daughter. She said she can't take the pilling anymore. Left him. And that's basically it. Return to sender, address unknown. She just couldn't take the pilling anymore. She took the daughter, went away. She wanted him to get treatment, but he wouldn't. That's a little bit later. A deal struck for these Vegas shows, $1 million per year, and Elvis can't do any international tours, and all the debts that the Colonel had are forgiven. And he also has an unlimited line of credit to gamble and gamble and gamble, as long as Elvis is on that stage. Then he gets death threats, and he starts carrying guns. There's that point where he shoots out the TVs when he's got a lady of the evening or a groupie or whatever the fuck it is. And he shoots out the TVs. He starts pilling himself out of his gourd. Priscilla says, please, go get some goddamn help. He doesn't. He ends up dying at the age of 42 after his waistline expanded. Too many peanut butter, banana, and bacon sandwiches, which sounds like a gross combination, but now I want bacon. God damn it. It's like that dog from the goddamn bacon strips commercial. Except their nose is less big than mine. And then we get clips of history and his last performance a few weeks before he died. And the Colonel said he died because he loved the fans. It just felt so soulless. It felt so soulless and felt like an amalgamation of just a series of Elvis moments without understanding how the moments came together. I'm not saying that he was the greatest entertainer ever, but he definitely would be up there. Because you think about it, his music's still influential to this very fucking day. But it wastes Austin Butler's performance. It wastes the great talents of Tom Hanks. And it ends up feeling more soulless than Walk the Line, which is saying something because Walk the Line overall wasn't really all that great. Baz Luhrmann had a bombastic blunder here. That's all I'm going to say. It gets an F, and I'm probably going to get a lot of hate for that, but this is one of the worst films of the year. Said that a lot. Also a very big disappointment. I didn't have a lot of expectations going into this, and I was just like, Jesus Christ, this movie will not end. Maybe big Elvis fans will enjoy it, but yes, F. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Like, share, subscribe, Twitter handle in the description. I'm John Ritland. I'll see you soon.